Hello and welcome back. I'm your host Tom, and this is your podcast, Beautiful Ashes. And the goal of this channel is very simple: to turn your gifts, to get your gift to make room for you. And now, how I'm going to do that is actually by teaching you ways to actually market yourself and creating marketing systems. That way, you can actually promote your business and get people to actually buy your things. So, anyway, part of this journey is discovering who the people actually going to be buying your things. For this episode, this is part of a series called Discovering Your Audience, or Who Your Dream Customer, or Who Your Audience Is. Now, as you noticed in the previous episodes, you talk about audience in terms of actually finding them on where they are and not really in the context of who they are or how you can actually discover them. Now, and you notice the reason is for that is actually very intentional. That's because you cannot be able to actually identify them by just looking at them. You're not walking around with X-rays in your eyes that you can actually see them and actually see that okay, this is the guy I'm called to serve. But there's one way you can actually identify them, that is through the problems that they have. And so you find there's this group of people somewhere they're having the same kind of problem, and if you can identify that problem, then you can be able to actually serve them by actually identifying that problem. So the first step is actually identify the problem, and then the next step is actually create content. We're going to talk about that one in the later episodes, but to actually create content to better serve these people and to address those problems. And so far, we've done the different kinds of things or the different kind of stages that you need to go through when it comes to creating an expert business. We talked about your role in all of this. Number one, number two, discovering your niche or your gap in the marketplace, and now we're talking about your audience. So there are three things that you've done so far. If you haven't already watched them, be sure to go through the videos. There are a couple of them, actually a bit of a handful, about 60 videos so far. And yes, I'm super excited for actually being able to say I've done 60 videos on YouTube. I read somewhere it only takes about 1% of people don't get beyond 1%. The 1% are actually better in any industry, usually, especially when it comes to YouTube and content creation, usually make it past 21 videos. So I guess I'm one of those rare gems. Anyway, that's one way of patting myself in the back. Now, back to this episode, discovering your audience. So another way you can actually discover who your audience is, again, this is through the pain points and the problem that they're having, is by actually talking to industry experts, by interviewing experts and business owners in the kind of space that you're already in. And this is something that I learned very well, very later, much later. But it's actually something that people do. It just hasn't been actually been pointed out, and so you probably know a lot of these things, but you don't actually haven't people actually put them into words. And so this is one of those things. And so you will get like an epiphany from this episode. And so you find that when you listen to videos on these industry experts, for instance, I listen to a guy called Alex Omoji. I listen to guys like Robert Kiyosaki, Busi Dembekwayo. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. But when you listen to these guys, a lot of the times you find them, even as they talk and even as they share their content, you'll often find them mentioning one or another thing. Like another mistake, for instance, quote unquote, another mistake I find entrepreneurs making is blah, blah, blah. Or another thing that I see most people make is one, two, three. Or another problem that I see most people doing when it comes to business or when it comes to marketing is this and this and this. And so what happens here is as they continue to talk to you about these things, because of the variety of conversations that they've had, they've noticed patterns. And these are the patterns that I'd like for you to pay attention. They notice patterns even as they engage people who are having a particular problem. And so, for instance, if you're in the make money online niche, you find that when you listen to these guys, you find that there are very many patterns that actually crop up. And so you find there's like, for instance, there's like the hidden fees. And so you find a guy telling you, hey, you can make money just with just I think about $100. And then as you're going through the video, you find later on you need to spend like $1,000. And they initially told you it only takes about $100 to actually do something. And so you can find that is that pattern across that always comes across. Another thing you might find is people always call themselves guru, but for instance, they haven't actually, or they can actually show any kind of results. All the things that they're sharing with you are things that work in the past that are not sustainable. And so you might find like 100 ways to make money from, or how to make $1,000 a day on, or using an affiliate marketing website, for instance. And then guess what? They don't. What they don't tell you is that actually before you can get to $1,000, it actually takes you anywhere from 6 months to 2 years to actually get that kind of results. And so you find there's all of this kind of hidden pieces of information that always revealed later on, that actually kind of hidden within the byline, or within, like how you find it in television, whereby they read the terms and conditions really quickly, and it's just kind of the same kind of problem. So when you listen to this experts, as they talk and as they publish videos, even for instance, as they publish video online, what you find is they often mention or they often quote some of the problems that people who are like you are actually facing. And so this kind of what this does, it actually shortens the time it takes for you to actually discover these problems. And when you actually are able to pinpoint them, you can actually note them down, and then you have one more criteria or one more trait that you can be able to identify in your audience that you can actually be able to help them solve that particular problem. Okay. And so you find that, for instance, if you've been in the freelance marketing space, you're a freelancer, you notice that this kind of one problem that freelancers have is the feast and famine cycles, whereby there are seasons whereby they get a lot of money or a lot of clients, and then there's seasons whereby they don't have anything. And so they have to survive on the money they made during the feast season. And so you find some of these things, you're not going to be able to identify them as a newbie or if you're new to the market. But what happens is if you've been there long enough, you can actually be able to identify them. And when you listen to people who've been there long enough, they will actually help you able to pinpoint these things very quickly, and then you can actually be able to overcome these kind of hurdles and actually be prepared for them when the time comes, because they're actually going to be talking about how to overcome these kind of strategies. And so one way to actually discover your audience, that is through their pain points or their problem, is by listening to these interviewed experts. And if you have the opportunity to for instance, if you have the opportunity to speak to them one on one or have an interview with them or get them on a call, be sure to ask them, like, what is the number one way you can do this is by asking them questions like, what are three things that you find that most people make? What are three mistakes that people make in X and Y, whatever niche that is, or when it comes to learning the piano that you've discovered over the years? And they tell you, one is this, and second is this, and third is this. And so they'll tell you this because guess what? By interacting with a variety of hundreds or thousands of people, they've been able to discover are the kind of problems that keep cropping up. And so what you're doing here is you're leveraging their experiences, their experience, having interacted, having done it before. And by leveraging that experience, it cuts the time that it takes for you to actually learn about the kind of problems that your audience is actually facing. And so, yeah, that's it for this episode. So, if you one great way of actually finding out who your audience is, that is through their pain points and through their problems, is by actually talking to or interviewing experts or people already business owners in the space that you're already in, or listening to actually some of the most popular people in that space who are already popular on YouTube, already publishing videos, already creating content, and then that way you can actually cut short the learning curve that it takes to actually go out there and actually discover who your audience is. Now, but this one takes time as well. And so something that you do progressively. And so you just have to have a pen and paper every time you're watching a video about an expert. And then that way you can actually note down some of the problems or some of the pain points that they actually talk about. So that's it for this episode. I'll see you in the next episode about discovering your audience. As always, be sure to hit the like, share, and subscribe button. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, I'm eager to hear from you guys because after all, I'm here to serve. So that's it for this episode, and thank you so much for listening, for giving me your time. That's it for this episode. Bye. I've said that many, but I know I've said that a lot of times. But anyway, bye bye now. I'm actually hanging up.